Today I thought it would be so great to go through some LinkedIn profile headshots and give them a review. Now I'm getting this list from the LinkedIn top voices list that they have published. They have 10 different categories and 10 people within each category. So today I'm going to be going through their influencer category and just checking out what people are using for headshots, maybe give you guys some tips, maybe give them some tips. I haven't seen the photos yet. And because this is LinkedIn, I am going to heavily gauge my opinion based on a LinkedIn article that LinkedIn has published called 10 Tips for a LinkedIn Headshot. It goes through some of the guidelines that LinkedIn suggests you use for your profile picture. Now to the list of LinkedIn's top voices under the influencer category. Now there's a couple billionaires in here and I haven't seen all the photos, so I'm kind of hoping for like some Annie Leibovitz type photos or maybe like a Peter Hurley headshot, something really high end. So let's kind of see what we got. First up, the #1 top voice on LinkedIn. Now this is based on interactions on the profile. So it's not LinkedIn favoring anyone, it's actually metrics and numbers and insights. So the #1 influencer on LinkedIn, Bill Gates. I actually really like Bill Gates' photo, you know? We have a solid color background. There's a little bit of texture there, which is great. We have a little bit of Rembrandt lighting, which means we probably have one big softbox coming from one side and the light is spilling over to his face on the other side, which creates a little bit of shadow here. Now shadow's great because it adds definition. It's become known as Rembrandt lighting. So clearly a photographer who knows what they're doing. I don't know who shot this photo. His eyes look kind yet confident. So confident eyes gonna be a little more narrow. If you're deer in the headlights, your eyes go really big. So, you know, Bill Gates doesn't want to be surprised with anything. Maybe stock market's up or down or whatever. You want to know that this person is confident and can carry and lead his people through whatever hard times may pop up. And he has a nice, friendly smile that isn't too big. I think they probably put a lot of thought into this photo based on who he is and his public perception of who people think he is. And I think the marketing team did a great job. They hired a great photographer and his face fills almost 60% of the frame, and he's wearing what he'd probably wear to work. He doesn't actually dress up that fancy. I see him on the internet and it's often like modest clothing for a billionaire. Good job at what's his name? Good job, Bill Gates and his marketing team. The second top influencer on LinkedIn is Richard Branson. Now everyone knows this guy. He has an infectious smile, but I was hoping to see his big smile. He has a really big smile, but he's looking a little more like stoic and model posy in this photo. That's okay. He has a great smile. I personally, for him, if I was his marketing team, would have liked to see a little bit more of a smile. But his wardrobe, he's in some form of space suit with an Under Armour logo. I don't know if he's involved in Under Armour at all. He's involved in a lot of companies, but here's an exception. Like a typical person, I would not suggest dress in whatever kind of suit he's in. It could be fencing or it could be skydiving. For Richard Branson, he does this kind of stuff and he's always doing something cool and crazy, so the wardrobe works. You should rock it. That's great. I don't know about the Under Armour logo. Maybe that's product placement, maybe it's not. For a regular person, I would have definitely edited out the logo or preferred you show up with wardrobe with no logos. His background is also very space-like. It matches the wardrobe. Whatever the background is, it's out of focus. It's not too distracting, but there's some elements back there. So I really like the background and I think it works for him, his brand, who he is. I think probably he's one of the few people who could pull off that. It'd have to make sense for you, you know? His head's a little small. You could zoom in, you could crop into that photo a little bit to make sure his face fills more of that real estate. The third top voice on LinkedIn is Mohamed El-Erian. He's known as one of the best finance, economic experts. He's been on TV, he's been everywhere. I've never heard of him until this, so I'm gonna follow him. Just gave him a follow. Let's dive into his headshot. So his head is actually kind of like appropriately sized. You could zoom in a tiny bit more, but it roughly fills 60% of the frame. He's wearing what he would wear to probably a TV interview or to meet a new client. So all of that's appropriate. The background is a solid color background. Some detail in there, but it's pretty nondescript, which is fine. It's not distracting. But his smile's probably a little too big. Your mouth communicates approachability, so he definitely looks approachable, but I'd say it's just a little too big. And for me, what a little too big is, and this is my personal opinion, is when there's a gap between your teeth and your lip, or your teeth and your bottom teeth. It kind of looks like you're mid-laugh or mid-talking. I would like to just like close that gap, just a hair. You can still have the big smile, that's fantastic. I would personally guide the people in my headshot studio to keep that same vibrancy, but just close it, literally 10%. And then his eyes are also confident, a little more focused, a little more narrow. Naturally that comes, the bigger you smile, your eyes actually do narrow a little bit. So that's probably that. So yeah, not too much feedback. If I were to change one little thing, it would just be like, tighten that smile in just a little bit. The fourth top voice on the influencer list for LinkedIn is James Altucher. He has his own podcast on investing and business. I also have never heard of him to now, so I'm also going to give him a follow. He has almost 2 million followers, so he probably knows what's up. He has crazy hair, and I kind of like that because his hair is part of his brand. When you have a very distinct facial feature, or maybe your hair is very distinct, run with it. Like, use that as part of your brand. I recently had somebody in my photo studio and they had big, crazy curly hair and they wanted it to take over the photo, and I think that's amazing because I could recognize her from like a mile away. If she was at a conference and she was way down there, I would know who it was based on her hair. Her hair is part of her brand. James's hair is part of his brand. I think it's awesome. This photo looks to be natural light, maybe a little overexposed. Now this might be a personal preference of mine, but it's a little bright, a little overexposed. But he has a friendly, authentic smile, confident eyes. It does look like it's natural light. It looks like it's outside. This photo may have been taken on a cell phone, maybe film. It looks a little faded, which is an aesthetic. It's not right or wrong. That's not how I would shoot it. But yeah, it looks like a little bright on his nose, on his cheekbones, and the contrast is a little weak on the photo, but yeah, it's a fine photo. I would like to see something really like high-end editorial for him. I think this could be really great. Number 5 top voice influencer on LinkedIn is Bernard Marr. Now, I've never heard of him either, so this is great. I'm gonna give him a follow. He is a keynote speaker, futurist, business and tech strategy advisor. I think his shot's actually kind of cool. I kind of like what he did with his headshot here. It looks like they took out the background and put in a bright green background, probably in post. I wonder if I could zoom in. But they also might have just shot it on that green color background, but then they cut that out and put a circle around his head and torso, and then cut that like behind his hair, so it kind of looks like he's popping out a little bit. I think you would have been fine without the white part. Maybe that white pattern's part of your brand, but it's quite a fine pattern, and on the cell phone it kind of looks a little pixely. And I know it's probably not pixely, it's clearly a professional photo. I like the green, I would have stuck with the green and I would just ditch the white. You could zoom in a little bit more. Make sure your head fills 60% of that frame. Now, here's why I like a bright green background. Nobody else has the bright green background, and when I searched his name, my eye instantly went to it because the photo's like this big. So I see a bunch of like white background headshots or like gray background headshots, and then a bright green one. So you kind of know, oh, that's probably who I'm looking for. So I think the bright green is great. Clearly this was done by a professional. I can see the studio lights in the reflections of his eyes. That's how photographers kind of tell how things are lit, is you look in people's eyes and see their reflections. The level of his smile is great. He looks approachable, but like I said, there's not that gap between the teeth and the lips. So he looks friendly, he looks approachable, and then his eyes look really confident. The catch lights help in his eyes, and then he just has like really good focused eyes. Yeah, I wouldn't change much. I would just get rid of that white pattern and zoom in just a little bit. The number 6 top voice on LinkedIn under the influencer category is Sally Krawcheck. Again, I've never heard of her, so I'm gonna give her a follow. I love her banner though. It says, "Nothing bad happens when women have more money," and I couldn't agree more. So I like her already. Her headshot looks to be a either screen grab or behind the scenes photo from when she was maybe on a podcast or a news television broadcast. Although that's fine for this specific use of a headshot photo, that little circle on LinkedIn, what I would probably do is use an actual real headshot. Use the photo that you're using now as like blog posts, social media posts, the banner in the background, all of that's great. What her marketing and media team is probably doing is communicating to the world, hey, she can be booked for a podcast, keynote speaker, and she can go on TV. So I think that is communicated, but I would like to see an actual headshot, and I would say Maybe the biggest no-no of this, although the background's distracting, her head is too small in the frame, she's not looking at the camera. And for a headshot, someone who comes to your page, they want to connect with you. You need to be looking directly in the camera lens to have that human connection. I think that's so important and underrated. I don't think it was one of the LinkedIn tips. That's one of my biggest tips. Love the photo, use it on social, use it as the background, use it on your blog post, use it as PR, but put a real headshot there. That's my advice. Look at the camera and really make those human connections. The number 7 top voice influencer on LinkedIn, that is such a mouthful to say, is Ian Bremmer. He is the president of the Eurasia Group. I also haven't heard of him. I think I've only heard of like 2 of these people. So I gotta follow him and do my LinkedIn research. This is great though. I love meeting new people. I love finding out new things. This is so awesome. Okay, Ian, let's dive into your headshot. Now, same thing. This is a photo of Ian. He's on stage. He's doing a keynote speaking gig, or maybe talking to his company, but it's not a headshot. Like I said, the photo is so tiny. I need to see that headshot. I really want to see that headshot zoomed in, connection with the camera. So this is a great photo. It communicates again that he can be booked as a keynote speaker. He could probably go on television, probably goes on podcasts. It's a great behind the scenes photo. Use it for that blog post, use it for social media. But your profile photo really should be connecting, your ability to make that first impression connecting with somebody. And on the phone, let me zoom out. When I'm looking at it, when I'm on your profile, your actual profile photo is about the size of a quarter. But when I go out of your profile and I just searched your name, your photo is about the size of a dime. So all I see is a Caucasian man doing this. I don't recognize you at all, and you could walk right by me on the street and I would be, hey, that's the guy, you know? I wouldn't recognize you at all because all I see is a Caucasian man doing this on a stage. Even when it's the size of a quarter, now I can kind of see you have glasses and gray hair, but I wouldn't recognize you. So that's why, especially for people who aren't a top voice with 4 million followers, it's so important to zoom in on your headshot and follow these headshot guides so that people can recognize you and relate to you and connect with you. The number 8 top voice on LinkedIn for influencers is Jill Schlesinger. Make sure I give you a follow. She is a CBC News analyst and a host. Jill on Money, Money Watch. So she does podcasts, TV shows, that kind of thing. Let's dive into her headshot. Same thing as the last 2 people. It's a behind the scenes photo of you at work. Now that's fine for blog posts, Instagram, PR, behind the scenes type photo, but for the profile photo, I would love to see that human connection looking at the camera. You're actually looking quite far down, probably at your notes, and there's a microphone and you're wearing headphones. I can see that there's like a market graph behind you, so I can tell what you do by your photo, which is really important. But again, I wouldn't recognize you, especially when, here's one of your most popular articles. Your photo is like so tiny, smaller than a marble. It's like maybe the size of a pea. I can see that you're wearing a blue shirt. There's a 0 chance I would recognize you. If I open your profile, your headshot goes to the size of a quarter. I can see now what color hair you have. I can see your gender. I don't think I'd recognize you on the street still, especially because you have headphones and a microphone in your face. This is prime real estate. If we look at somebody's profile, we, at least in North America, read from the top left to the right and go down. So your headshot photo is the very first thing people will see when they come to your page. That's why it's so important to make that good first impression and make a human connection. There's not much I can critique because this isn't a headshot. So, which is fine. That's your choice to put that photo there. Maybe your marketing and communications team to put it there. I can tell what you do from your job, so that's great. But I would love to actually look at you in the eye and be like, oh, this is Jill. It really helps with that human connection. The 9th top voice LinkedIn. The next LinkedIn top voice for influencers is a Vancouverite, and I already follow him, so that's pretty cool. I don't actually know him, but he started Hootsuite. His name is Ryan Holmes. Let's open up his headshot. Now he has the blank background, which is super cool. I think his headshot is a little zoomed out. You could zoom quite a bit more in. The lighting on your face could really use some improvement. Your face is quite shadowy. We really want to get to know you, and based on what you want to communicate to everyone, adding some light to your face is really going to help communicate that. Now, if you want to look super approachable, I'd put like a lot of light on your face, not overexposed, but like evenly lit, and that would help communicate that you have nothing to hide, you're super friendly, and you're a great guy. If you want to add some shadow, so you could add some mystery, but just do it a little more intentionally. I don't know this photographer. I don't know if they just set up a camera in their office or he just had somebody quickly snap a photo, but I can see there's a little bit of like a rim light on his shoulder, on his left shoulder and his left temple. He does have a catch light in his eye. It's just a little harsh. I would like to see the lighting a little more refined. But other than that, like I'm super pro shadow. I like adding some of the drama. I just think it could be like tweaked a little more. Yeah, I don't know, maybe Ryan, one day we could link up, go for coffee in Vancouver sometime. The 10th LinkedIn top voice for the influencer category is Sramana Mitra. Again, I don't follow her, so I'm gonna give her a follow. She is the CEO of 1 Million by the 1 Million. I don't know what that is. I like the name of it. I'm gonna check it out. But let's dive into her headshot. What I really like about her headshot is how zoomed in it is. Her face is filling the vast majority of the frame. So I can recognize her, I can see who she is, and I'd probably recognize her at an event. Now, just speaking about event, I think this was probably taken at an event, maybe a corporate event, maybe a wedding, I'm not sure. But I can tell by where the shadows are and the catchlight in her eyes that the light is coming from below. It's also a very small light. Why that may not be the most flattering is, think about in a movie when they're telling campfire ghost stories and they hold the flashlight underneath. It can be a little spooky. Now your photo isn't spooky, it's not the most flattering option for your headshots. There's quite harsh shadows coming down across the cheek here. One eye, your right eye is quite in the shadow. I would love to see a little more refinement on the choice of your headshot. But you look super friendly, super approachable, and I would definitely recognize you, and I think you did a good job by zooming in far enough. We could probably, similar to some of those other people, rein in the smile just a little bit so there's not that gap between the teeth and your lip. But I still love the vibrant smile. You look super friendly, super approachable, and I'm actually really interested in what your company's all about. And that is the top 10 influencers for the LinkedIn top voices. I would love to know, like, did you learn anything? Is there something, if you look at your headshot, what might you want to change, or are you on the right track? I would just love some feedback. I'm going to be doing a whole series of these where I review different headshots. None of this is out of shaming people or putting people down. I just want to educate the world, educate people on the power your headshot has and how to maximize your communication through your headshot. And hopefully some of this helped. I'm gonna do another video, put it up shortly. So please like, subscribe, share the video. That would be super helpful. I appreciate you checking this out.